Rollo S. Goodnight, and Frank B. Eaton, pioneer Oklahoman, friends for 55 years, and living eyewitnesses to every run and opening made in what is now Oklahoma. This is one of WKY's historical series. Mr. Rollo Goodnight and Mr. Frank B. Eaton are before our microphone this Sunday morning. They're going to look back into the past and reminisce for a few moments about the early days of Oklahoma, of which they know perhaps as much as anyone now living. Now, Mr. Goodnight, we're going to start off with you, and Frank, you follow along, and whenever you think of anything that you want to put in, why, don't hesitate. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now, Mr. Goodnight, tell us first where you were born and how you came to Oklahoma.
Well, I was born in the state of Kentucky.
And were your parents pioneer Kentuckians?
Yeah.
How did you come to Oklahoma?
In the covered wagon was away to Houston, Texas.
How old were you when you
I was
came?
3 months old.
Well, tell us something about that, Mr. Goodnight.
Well, Dad come to Houston, Texas. He had a brother there, and he thought he'd locate there. But when he got to Houston, he didn't like it. So he turned north and went to Arkansas City, Kansas. And he homesteaded a farm a little ways out from Arkansas City, northeast of town, where I growed up in Arkansas City and out on his little ranch till I was 13 years old. Mother died. In about 6 months, Dad married again, and I didn't like my stepmother very well, and I left home. And I went down in the Cherokee Strip and went working on a cow ranch there. Weatherspoon's cow ranch, a Wrangler home. And I worked there about 6 months, I guess, and Frank Eaton, old buddy of mine that we've known ever since we was kids, he came along and he wanted to go to Texas. And I told him, all right, he'd wait till I drawed my wages. So I drawed my wages, and we went back to town and got some provisions.
Yeah, we got 300 shells and a dime's worth of salt. That's the provision we started to Texas.
And we got down to made all right, we got down to South Canadian. His tank full. And Dad always had some idea, I don't know what got in his head, that I was going to die with my boots on. I guess it's pretty tough kid or something. So we got down there and we had to swim the river. And I told Frank to wait till I pulled my boots off, because I didn't want to die with my boots on. So I pulled the boots off and we went on in. And went on to Texas. And after that, we went working for Dan Wagner, old Dan Wagner. Well, Uncle Charlie from up at Polodero, he heard that we was down there. So he sent for me and we went up there. Went working for him. But every spring, for 3 years, whenever the trail drive was going north, we went on the trail drive, either for him or for someone else. We made 3 drives up the Chisholm Trail, and we made several drives up as far as Adobe Walls. Now, the Adobe Wall Trail went into Colorado and then branched off to Dodge City. So we made them 3 drives up the Chisholm Trail, and then we'd go back. In '89, the year the old Oklahoma opened, we came back because we knew it was going to be a big run. And we came back, and I went to working for C. Horsley up here, helping to put cattle out of the strip to get ready for this great opening.
That was done by government order?
That was done by government order.
How many cattle were there approximately running wild in the old territory?
Oh, there's millions of them. You don't know. Everybody had cattle in there.
Well, how did the buffalo and the cattle live together on the same plain?
They didn't. The buffalo were further west.
Oh, I see. And Mr. Goodnight, how old were you when you left home? You told us, I believe.
13.
When you left home.
Little past 13.
Struck out for yourself?
Yes, sir.
And what year was that, you recall?
That was in 93.
1893.
83.
1883. And, of course, that was before the run of 1889. and you saw a good deal of this country before it was opened. Now, you said you went down to the South Canadian and crossed on horseback. Is that right? You swam across?
Every stream between Arkansas City and Red River.
You had to swim. There were no bridges.
No bridges.
No roads.
And no what?
No roads.
And no roads. Well, how did you do? You just strike out across the country. Is that right?
Well, they had the trail. The Jesse Chisholm had made this trail a freight trail before. And when we hit the trail, then we followed the trail down.
Where did you cross the South Canadian? Do you recall?
Union City.
About
Where
Union City
is
now. Of course, there was nothing there then.
Oh, no.
Was the river wider in that day than it is now? More water, apparently?
Well, I don't know as there were. I don't know as there were, but it was bank full.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't no erosion then like it is now.
It was slower in flow, is that correct? Mm-hmm.
And the banks were higher, too, I think.
You took off your boots so that if you did happen to drown,
your
father would be wrong, is that right?
I wanted to make Dad out a liar.
Well, did any other occasion arise where you had to take your boots off in order to
Always did
fool father?
Always did when I thought maybe there was something coming up that I might die or get killed.
Mm-hmm. You always took them off. Did Frank do that too?
Occasionally.
All right. Now, you said that you met Frank when you were 13 years old, and you've been together ever since. You didn't tell us enough about that. How old was Frank at that time?
Well, I think Frank was about 18, I think.
About 18.
No, I was
19
years old.
Well, when you first saw each other, what did you think of each other?
Oh, I thought he was a damn diggle.
What did you think, Frank?
Why, it was just, I just thought like a thoroughbred horse, that he had the good makings in him if he just was brought out and trained properly, and I thought of training.
You thought you'd take him over.
Yeah.
I see. Well, now, you took up and have been together in and out of trouble and good times and bad for the past 55 years. Is that right?
Till the present
Have
day.
you seen more good times than you have bad in Oklahoma?
Yes.
I think so.
We always enjoyed every minute of our lives.
No matter what happened.
No matter what happened. You couldn't change it, and you just as well laugh as cry.
Now, the Chisholm Trail, you say Chilhome. Is that the way it was pronounced in those days?
Chisholm.
Chisholm? Is
Chisholm.
That? Chisholm.
The way it's pronounced.
It's Chilholm.
Spelled Chisholm.
Chisholm. And you sort of run it together.
Yeah, Chilholm.
And what year did he first start his trail? Do you recall?
I think I was in about 76, and I don't remember exactly, but I think in about 76.
Uh-huh. Now, how many years was that trail in operation?
Till the railroads,
Came through.
Rock Island Railroad came down through.
Uh-huh. Now, the Chisholm Trail proper ran from what point to what point?
It ran from Arkansas City to
No,
Turtle.
not from Arkansas City. That is the Arkansas City branch. It runs
Well, it's
from Abilene, Kansas.
Abilene, Kansas,
Uh-huh.
but then you come
Yeah.
through west
Yeah.
of Arkansas.
Yeah.
There we'll hit it there.
And ran to where?
And to Turtle, Texas,
Turtle,
where
Texas.
Turtle, Texas
Yeah.
is now. It used to be what we used to Sloan,
Well, yeah,
Doan's
Stone-
Crossing, Doan's
yeah,
Crossing.
Doan's Crossing.
Uh-huh.
Doan's
How many
Crossing.
miles altogether was the trail? About how long?
About 400 or 500 miles.
400 or 500 at
Long
least.
old-
Well, now, when you drove cattle over the Chisholm Trail, of course, that trail is very famous. We've all heard of it. And today, I don't suppose there's very much left, though. There's no road where that is.
Nothing at all.
Just a bare suggestion
That's
of
all.
the prairie.
Highway 81,
Is almost on it.
almost
It
on.
varies,
Uh-huh.
you know.
It varies, but
Winds around.
it's within 20 miles of the old original trail anyway.
Uh-huh. It passes very close or through Yukon, which is very
Yes,
close to
sir,
Oklahoma
sure,
City, I understand.
sure.
And what was the procedure?
Well,
You'd,
Yukon, now listen, Yukon is way east of there. He came right up, right where El Reno is.
Right in
Close-
east of El Reno is
I
where
see.
the trail comes.
close to Fort Reno.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Now, what was the procedure when you actually drove cattle on that trail? How many men drove about how many cattle?
Well, generally, a trail herd consisted of about 2,500 head.
Uh-huh.
If one man didn't have them all, other men crewed in. And it taken about 25 men.
To
Figured
run.
about 100, one man to about every 100 head
I
to
see.
stock. And then you had your horse wrangler and your cook.
I see. And each man just had the one riding horse?
No, he had a mount of 6 horses.
Oh, I see. Each man had 6 horses and chains, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the horses that run free when they weren't being ridden?
Well, they
In a herd.
took care of them. Horse herd, you know.
Well, would you drive all day and all night, or just in daytime?
Sure, we drive in the daytime.
Each night you'd stop?
Sure.
And you have dogs to help watch the cows?
Oh, God, no. We kill every dog come around because they'd stampede the cattle.
And
We watched herd,
if you ever,
night herding.
I see. If you ever met up with a herd of buffalo, what would you do, or did you ever?
Well, we generally, the foreman all generally rode ahead, and if there's any other cattle coming in, he took a man or two with him. If there's any other cattle close to the trail, he shifted them off. Any buffalo in there, he drove them off so they wouldn't mix with their trail herd.
And Chisholm, did he charge anything for others to use his trail?
Oh, he had no authority
to do that. He didn't do that.
He just marked the trail, you know.
How was the trail marked? Just by the
It was a
path?
freight trail.
It was a freight
The Chisholm
trail, a
Trail
wagon
was
trail.
originally a freight trail.
Did it have markers or posts
Oh,
along
no,
the side?
nothing at all.
You just followed, you could see it.
Yeah,
It was plain.
That's all.
I
It's
see.
like an old road going across the path, you know.
Now then, we're very interested in the various openings and runs in Oklahoma, and you've seen them all with your own eyes, and you can tell us, I'm sure, something interesting about each one. Of course, we all know that the old Oklahoma Territory was opened on April 22nd, 1889. The Kiowa and Comanche on August the 6th, 1901. That was opened by lottery, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Correct. And then to go back, the Sac and Fox opening, September 22nd, 1891. The Cheyenne and Arapaho, April 18th, 1892. And that was opened by horse race. And Cherokee Strip, September 16th, 1893.
Yes, sir.
And the Kickapoo Land in May, 1895.
Yes, sir.
Now, you attended all of these strip openings, and of course you were extremely young at that time. Were you old enough to take out land if you'd wanted to?
Not till 91.
I see. How about Frank?
I was old enough, but then that's between 89 and 91, I became of age. I think when old Oklahoma opened, I liked a year probably of being old enough to take. So when the Iowa and Cy Fox country opened, I was old enough then to homestead, so I homesteaded.
And you still have that land?
No, sir.
I see. Do you have any land holdings
Yes, sir.
that you homesteaded in 1901?
No, not that I homesteaded.
Oh, I see. Now, this Cheyenne and Arapaho opening, April 18th, 1892, they say it was opened by horse race, but just how did they do that?
Well, they had a line around there. The soldiers kept them back on a certain line on the boundaries of
Four sides?
of this country.
I see.
And they had an hour set at noon. They all gathered on that line there, and when this soldier fired his Winchester, everybody run for a farm.
Any wagons or all horseback?
Wagons and horseback and carts and foot and everything imaginable.
Now, this is the Cheyenne Arapaho opening, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All of them are similar.
And you say they ran across country. How in the world did they cross the gullies and the creeks and with these wagons?
Well, they could find a cow trail.
Just go up and down till they found one.
Wherever they could.
Now, when they did they know where they were going, or did they just look for a good place and
Well,
stop?
them that had been in there before probably knew, but then there's thousands of them that had never seen the land before. They just taken the chance.
They cleared them out before they started.
Oh,
the
yeah.
land.
Well, they're supposed to.
Well, the ones that weren't cleared out, of course, they were
They were Sooners.
Were there Sooners in every opening?
Oh, yeah.
Every
Oh,
opening?
sure.
Always Sooners.
Plenty of them.
Well, the horse race is very similar to the old Oklahoma opening, of course. They're very similar.
Yeah, same thing.
Now then, the lottery opening in 1901, August 6th, Kiowa and Comanche. How did they hold?
Well, you had to go down there and register.
Where?
At El Reno and at Lawton, two different places. And after you're registered, then they give you a number, and them numbers is all put into some kind of a box, I don't know, and chuck up, and then some government authority drew these numbers out, and if your number was number one, well, you got first choice in the land, and so on down the line.
Oh, I see. Well, there were disputes, I imagine.
No, it couldn't be.
Couldn't be.
Couldn't be.
But when they settled on the land, did they have to
Well,
argue
they
some
had
then?
their number for that land, got right off in the files, the records, you know, and they went to that number, and that was their land because they had the right to go.
I see. Well, thank you, Rollo Goodnight. Now, this is the end of part one.
Sure.
Part two in WKY's historical series, devoted to the reminiscences of Rollo S. Goodnight and Frank B. Eaton. Now, Frank, it's your turn, and we're going to ask you a few questions, much the same as we asked Rollo, so to get you started off. Where were you born, Frank?
Hartford, Connecticut.
That's a long way from Oklahoma.
Yes, it is, but it's a blue-bellied Yankee state.
Well, you're right. And how did you come to Oklahoma?
Why, my parents came to Osage County, Kansas, Carbondale, southeast of Lawrence, in 1867. In 68, my father was called to the door and shot down like a darn mad dog by a bunch of Missouri men that had been on the other side of the fence in the war. And there were 6 of them that killed him. There were 6 men killed him.
Were you there?
I was present, yes.
How old were you, Frank?
I was just a little kid of a boy. But after the death of my father, there was a man there by the name of Moses Beeman, a friend of father's. He came over there and he put his hand on top of my head and he says, "May an old man's curse rest on you the longest day you live if you don't find and shoot the man that murdered your father." Well, I was just a kid of a boy and I thought I had it to do. And he came over with a pair of old Dragoon cap and ball pistols and learnt me how to use them. That's how I got my name of Pistol Pete. I learned how to use them guns. I can use them yet better than any man in the state, I think.
I've seen you do it.
And so that's how I happened to start riding so much. And
well, we would like to ask you if you ever did find those.
I saw every one of them. I only stayed to one man's funeral and another man killed him. That is at Buckhart, Douglas County, Missouri. His name was Johnny Ferbert.
Well, after that, did you have to take care of your family, or were there a large family with older boys?
Why, my mother married again, married a man by the name of Goodhue, and moved to the Indian Territory in 1873. 76, I think. Moved first in 73 down to Caneyville, Kansas, where Caneyville is now, on Cheyenne Creek. And then we moved down in 76, we moved down below where Bartlesville is now, on Sand Creek, right in that big fishhook-shaped hill, right on Big Caney River there.
Now tell us how you met Mr. Goodnight.
Why, I was, the Comanche Pool was formed, and I was a rider.
What is the Comanche?
Well, the Comanche Pool was a cattle company. A lot of cattlemen banded together, and they called it the Comanche Pool. Well, I was a pretty good rider and a good hand with a gun, and they'd send me to hunt up cattle rustlers and give me a commission, an officer's commission. I've been a peace officer ever since that day, too, and carry a commission in my pocket right now, and I've got a warrant there, too. And, and I wanted a buddy. It gets awful lonesome, a man around all the time by himself. And Raleigh, I'd heard of his uncle and his father.
And who were they?
Old Charlie Goodnight was his uncle. He was down to Palo Duro Canyon, down about 25 miles southeast of Amarillo.
And he helped found the Chisholm Trail, didn't he?
Yes, no, he drove over it.
Drove over it.
Yes, sir. He was amongst the first that followed it. And I went down, he was a horse wrangler for Witherspoon. And I went down there and I says, "Rollo, let's go to Texas." And he says, "All right." I had an uncle there, had a spread up on the head of Running Water Creek, southwest of Amarillo down there. Nick Eaton, his name was. And he says, "All right, wait till I draw." And he went up to the boss and drew his money. We went up to Arkansas City, We bought 344 cartridges and a dime's worth of salt.
Why the salt?
Well, to salt our meat with. We didn't like to eat it fresh. And then we struck out right across the prairie, and we followed in a southwesterly course till we hit the old Chisholm Trail, and followed it down past Fort Reno, went to work for Dan Wagner. We worked for him a while, and we worked for Garrett Tanksley, the old 7D outfit down on the Escondido. Then we went up to Charlie Goodnight's, and he set us with pretty good ropers, pretty good riders, and he was forming a buffalo herd. And he was lacking a few, and he sent us out to rope calves, buffalo yearlings and calves. We'd rope them and tie them to old blues and send them in.
They tell amazing stories about the number of buffalo in this territory in the early days. Have you any recollections?
I've seen buffalo that you could look just as far as you could the way they were going, and you couldn't see the end of them. And you could look just as far as you could where they're coming from, and you couldn't see the end of them, and just as far as you could in front of you, and you couldn't see the end of them. Just looked like the whole world was a-moving.
All buffalo.
All buffalo.
It's all one color.
All one color, and there's all a-moving.
They were killed off, I suppose, or did they die?
No,
They were
They
killed
all
off for their hides, just wasted. A white man's the worst waster in the world anyway.
Now, Frank, you met Rolla, as you told us. You went to Texas, you came back to Oklahoma, you went to work for Mr. Goodnight, and along about that time, they started opening some of this territory, did they not?
Yes, sir.
And what was the first run or opening that you
Oh,
attended?
it was an old Oklahoma proper.
That's in 89.
Yes, sir.
You were right here in 89.
I was a deputy United States Marshal at
Which-
that time.
Which side did you make the run from?
I didn't make the run. I just rode in for the fun of it,
I
just to
see,
watch
and-
the other fellas run.
Was Rolla with you?
Yes, we
Anything
both
interesting?
together.
Anything interesting happened?
Why, yes, there was lots of interesting
That's
things.
what I want you to tell me.
Well, sometimes the soldiers would go out and catch fellas, you know, that was out there, and there were Sooners. There were Sooners in there. And we had a lot of fun of watching them slip away from the soldiers. We wasn't a bothering them. We didn't care. We was just there for the fun of it and see the horse race, you know, and bet on who got out first. Such as that. But we come in just the same with the others.
Did you ever meet David Payne?
Yes, sir.
Captain.
Yeah.
Old Cap Payne, yes, sir.
Yeah,
And I met Couch after Payne was taken out. Payne was poisoned, I think, when he was fed up there.
In
and
Kansas?
I think he was poisoned because he died immediately
Was
afterwards.
that in Kansas or Oklahoma?
Yes, sir.
In Kansas.
When the soldiers had him.
I see. Well, tell us a little more about Payne. Do you recall anything interesting about him as a man?
Why, as a man, he
Oh,
seemed
yeah.
to be a pretty good kind of a feller. He was a leader, a natural-born leader.
Their camp is on the south bank of Cimarron, northeast of Guthrie, about 8 miles.
Yes. And then he founded the city of Stillwater. Stillwater City was founded by Payne. And old Green B. Hill and me drawed straws to see who was going to get a corner lot up there that the bank is sitting on now. And Green won it.
Payne was sincere in
He was.
attempting to open this country. Is that
He
true?
was sincere. And the cattleman was fighting him hard. Of course, we was on the side of the cattleman a little bit, but then we didn't do no shooting for him at all, but then we just,
Well, why would the soldiers wish to do him harm?
I don't know, to
They
keep
made
him down.
Government orders that
Government order.
government orders that the soldiers should put every intruder
Off
off the
this
line.
land. I see.
Yeah, they had to put all the intruders out. They were looked upon as an intruder. And the cattlemen had their vouch for their riders.
I'd like you to tell me that story you told about the wagon that didn't quite make the run due to...
Well, that was
difficulties.
in the opening of the Ioway in Sacan Fox. There was a
Oh, in 1891.
Yes, sir. There was a bunch of gamblers from Guthrie here, went up to going to make a run into the town side of Chandler. You know, after the country opened, the town side wasn't platted yet, and they delayed it a week. And they was down there in a hack, 6 of them, and the driver, he was sitting up in the seat, and the soldier was sitting up on the hill there with his carbine in his hand. Driver picked up his lines and got his whip all ready, and when the soldier fired his gun, he hit each one of them horses a heavy lick with a whip, and the horses jumped and broke the double tree and jerked him out over the dashboard, and them other 5 fellas were sitting in the wagon doing a scientific job of swearing. And we took right in after the horses and chased them off over the hill, let on like we was trying to catch them, and we chased them off over the hill and run them down the cricket ways and tied them up so they couldn't find them. And then went back and laughed at them.
Well, Frank, I wonder if you could tell us about that famous poker game in a few minutes.
Why, yeah. It used to be where a fellow had a pony and he'd want to play poker. Why, 3 or 4 of us would put in $5 apiece and take 20 grains of corn and freeze out for the horse. Whoever got all the corn got the horse. I run a bobtail flush up against a fellow with 3 jacks and tried to bluff him out and lost out. And I was out of the game. And Ed Webster, he had 2 pair against 3s, and he lost out. And he and I were sitting there. And he says, Frank, it says, I owe you $16 on the last payday. He says, let's play a game of poker for it. I want to buy me a new pair of boots. And we had a jackpot up. We just took 16 grains of corn, $1 an ante. And we had $5 apiece in the jackpot, and Ed dealt. And he dealt me out just 1 ace, and I couldn't open it. And he had a pair of kings and a pair of jacks, and he opened it for $5. I stayed and just threw my ace down face up. I said, give me 3 more aces and another card. And he dealt, and he caught another king. Made him a king full on jacks, all picture cards. I looked at my cards, and darn if he hadn't given me the other 3 aces, so I knew I had him. And we bet all the money we had up on the table, and he says, I wish that you could bet some more. I says, put the sky up for a limit. So he raised me back 4 head of steers, and I called with a team harness and wagon, and then raised him back 3 saddle horses and 4 cows. He called me with some yearlings and his saddle horse, and saddle and bridle, and then it come to a showdown. I had him beat, and we just tore the deck of cards in 2 and never played anymore, neither one of us. And I traded that stuff I got from my place down on the Cimarron with Perkins.
I see, Frank. Well, thank you. Now, we just have a few moments left, and I want to ask one question that we've asked before, and we get various answers. Now, you were in all of these runs, you and Rollo both. Were women allowed to make the run the same as the men in
Yes,
all
sir.
cases, or were they restricted?
Well,
They run, the women in every run that I ever was at.
I see. They went right along with their husbands
sir.
and drove the horses and
Yes,
helped
sir.
out. I see.
And lots of times a man would have a saddle horse, and he'd run in, and the woman would follow up with the team and the kids all loaded in the wagon,
chucks and everything.
and everything all ready to go to camp.
Much like a trailer today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, I think we have time for one other question. Did you visit Oklahoma City in the very early days? Were you through this country?
I did.
Yes,
you did,
sir.
Mr. Goodnight.
Very early.
You were here before the railroad?
Oh, long years.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
sir.
And you came into what is now, we'll say, the Oklahoma County and city of Oklahoma about what year?
Well, I came in here, I think that was in
I was over.
93 and 93. I was through here. That was way along before Oklahoma City was here, before the Rock Island Santa Fe Railroad was here.
Was this country wooded, or is it much like it is now?
Oh, of course, there's more timber then than there is now, but
Well, the prairie
much
fires.
beautiful country then than it is now. Mine was.
The prairie fires kept the timber down to a great extent.
Did the Indians live right around here, or were
No,
they
sir.
segregated
No,
in their
sir.
own
No
places?
Indians in old Oklahoma.
No Indians. Well, Mr. Eaton, we appreciate your stories very, very much. We'd like to talk with you for hours, but time does not permit. We want to thank you, Mr. Rollo S. Goodnight, and Mr. Frank B. Eaton, who have been friends, buddies, and pals on these plains for 55 years, and have made every run, attended every opening in what is now the state of Oklahoma. This recording was made on May the 8th, 1938.
Sure.